Who the Wild Things Are with Ryan McGuire.
You gotta listen to your body.
Oh my God, maybe, I could get out there, I could do this.
Let's take a ride, find your wild side, real stories, see with your own eyes.
It's so beautiful.
I'm gonna have the best time out here.
Yeah, I was in tears. I was like, that's the best, man.
Yo, welcome back, everybody, to episode 24 of Who the Wild Things Are, the number one live podcast in the world. I love how everyone always says, this podcast is the number one podcast. So now we're the number one podcast. But yeah, I'm back from the bush, back to see all your beautiful faces. I was out there doing my wild man thing for a little while, but we're back. And today we have an incredible show planned for you guys. If you're checking out on live, it's great to have you. As always, you can always see these shows on Spotify, YouTube. You can catch them wherever you catch your podcast. So today we're going to be talking with my friend Kris, who has taken the fitness world by storm. She is now the official Hyrox World Champion, and she's crushing a bunch of other stuff. Ultras, OCR races, you name it, she's probably competing in it. So we're going to hop on there, and we're going to hear a little bit from Kris. Hope everyone is having a great Wednesday. And yeah, we'll get it started here. Awesome. Well, it's great to have you. Thanks for hopping on here with me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry we couldn't make the Nolans 14 dates work. When I saw you said that, I started doing a bunch of research, and I was like, damn, this is something I want to do.
Pretty cool, right? It's happening someday. So, yeah.
Are you still going to go ahead and try in July? Probably
not in July, but maybe later this summer. We'll see.
Right on. Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things you got to be pretty dialed in for. So for people that don't know what we're talking about, Nolans 14 is 14 peaks in Colorado, all above 14,000 feet. So that means you got to deal with snow, you got to deal with lightning, and obviously like 100 miles and tons of different variables. So
yeah. 14 peaks in a row. It's, I think, 90 to 100 miles is the typical route. And people do it as like an FKT, but I was like, that'd be fun to just kind of do as a weekend, a long weekend, camping, backpacking trip.
I think you got a different kind of fun, like I don't think a lot of people would find that fun as you would.
You might be right.
So, Kris, I think a lot of people, have heard your name, especially recently because you've been dominating all these races. But I'm really curious to hear kind of how this whole thing came to be. I've been competing in some of these races just as of lately, and I'm always interested to hear kind of people's background and how they got into endurance and fitness racing. So what was it like growing up? Was this something you kind of always felt like you were headed towards?
Definitely not. I grew up very... I was actually, I guess I grew up oddly. I was homeschooled, very countercultural, very sheltered, and just, didn't have any big aspirations, really much of anything, but definitely not running at all. I ran a couple 5Ks like as a teenager, and kind of had fun with them, but that was literally the only 3 miles I ran per year. So that was it. No, did not see this coming as a kid for sure.
So when you say countercultural, do you mean like, are we talking about like hippie homeschool? Because we have like kind of different homeschools here in Colorado. I don't know if you've experienced any of them yet, but we got like the more like mountainy kind of parents, and then you have like the really religious parents who kind of have like the full spectrum.
We were the very religious parents, but alongside of that, very religious, definitely very like crunchy, like natural. So kind of bordering that hippie, but definitely falling more into the religious category.
Cool. So I'm guessing you spent just like an insane amount of time outside, just like climbing trees and being barefoot and such.
Absolutely. Yeah. For the first 8 years, we lived in a river valley in Arizona, central Arizona. And I remember our yard there, like we had this huge grapevine, we had mulberry trees, we had blackberry bushes, we had like literally everything. And we would just spend all day outside. Same, then we moved to Texas when I was 8, and we had 5 acres, and 5 acres was like, wow, that was so much property. And we were in a neighborhood where everybody else had 5 to 10 acres, and it was a lot of retired people. So we kind of traipsed all through everybody's yards. But yeah, running around barefoot. There were these, these like canyons, these basically drainage yeah, canyons really that kind of ran through the neighborhood. So we trek all through there. Yeah, barefoot. There's a lot of cactus there, so we learned pretty early like how to avoid cactus, and then if we did get it, how to get it out. But yeah, that was we'd do the school and the chores, whatever we need to do in the morning, and then the rest of the day was like outside and honestly as far away from the parents as possible, so we don't have to do anything else.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
escaping the chores. I feel like that's such a good way to grow up, though, especially when you see, now it's mostly like iPads and electronics for kids. I remember me growing up, it was like we all ran through the neighborhood. Everyone was in each other's yard, everyone knew everyone. And now I don't feel like that is as acceptable to just be kind of running through the neighborhood barefoot all the time.
Yeah. I think it definitely depends on the area, but yeah, as a general rule, I feel like it's not quite as common as it probably used to be.
Right. Yeah. So how did that kind of progress then? You grew up in this kind of countercultural homeschool environment, and then obviously we know where you are now. What does the middle of that look like? Did you always know like competition was your thing?
No, the middle of that was I eventually figured out like I knew I wanted to be outside, but it kind of started with horses. When I turned 17, 18, I wanted to work with horses. I always knew I'd wanted to, so I called several different horse barns in the area and was like, "Can I work?" So I ended up starting cleaning stalls, bringing horses in, but I loved just like the hands-on. I think I'm probably like borderline ADHD, so I was like something to do, something to keep me busy, something to like tire me out by the end of the day. Like I was all about that. So yeah, kind of worked. I worked for one horse bar, and then I started working for a horse trainer. So saddling horses, washing horses, and got to ride some of the horses. It was probably, I guess, kind of 3 years into that. I was working at another barn, and I ended up getting an opportunity to kind of go all in on it. And I moved out east to work at like a really top of the line show barn out there. So I did that for a summer. And I guess right before I had moved out there, I did a Tough Mudder, and then I did a Spartan. I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, these are kind of fun, but I wanted to do the other distances that I hadn't done yet. So I moved out east. I was ready to like pick up, go all in on horses. It was a good experience, but I learned very quickly, like, not going to work for me. Takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of really like background, and like the more family you have in it, the more like foundational you have in it, the better off you are. So I quickly learned, I was like, you know what, like I don't have the money, and I definitely don't have, if you don't have the money, you definitely have to like sell your soul to it. And I was like, I like it, but not that much. So kind of at the tail end of that, I found there's a lot more Spartans out there on the East Coast. So I did some more Spartans, and kind of, as the horse thing was ending, realizing I couldn't do that, kind of fell into the Spartans. Pretty quickly was like, I'm kind of good at this. I like the being outside on the trails. The obstacles are fun. And I did pretty well from the beginning. So to where I was kind of like, okay, I want to like try to see where I could go in this.
Yeah.
Did not think I would be here. I was kind of like, I'll try it for a year, see how that goes. Yeah. So I, took a year, I guess the next year, I was just, did local races, but it was really, highly focused on that obstacle course racing. But through that, I got involved with a gym down there in South Texas, where I've been living for the past 4 years. And they were very much like, they had all the obstacles, and they, so I was like, okay, this is a gym I'll go to. Because before then, I was honestly really like, gyms are ridiculous. Like, these people go to gyms and work out and get super strong, and you put them outside and they can't do shit. Like, they're helpless. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, I'll work hard and I can do whatever, I can survive outside. But this gym actually got me in because they had the obstacles. Well, they also had a pretty like solid, just basic group fitness, functional fitness classes. So I started doing that, and kind of, as I was kind of getting into now a gym person, but I was like, this is like, it is actually functional, and like it carries over. So I, was progressing steadily in the OCR. And then when DECA Fit and Hyrox, they both kind of came on my radar, like early 2020. And I did a Hyrox, and was like, this is really cool. I could be a lot better. So I wanted to do more, but then.
What was your first time? I'm curious.
My first time, I believe it was 117 or maybe 119, somewhere in that 117, 18, 19. It was somewhere in that range.
Good.
Which wasn't bad. Yeah. And I think I got like fourth in my wave, but then one other wave I ended up, I think, seventh overall, but still won my age group. Cause again, I was like, that was the thing that I found too pretty quickly is like, I'm on the younger side of this. Like if I'm doing well or not, I'm always doing like really well in my age group. So it's kind of a fun, like easy reward thing.
Yeah. How old are you?
I am now 25.
So you're in the 25 to 29 age group, right? Is that?
Yeah. Or a lot of times we'll do like a 20 to 29, but yeah, 20 to 29, 25 to 29, somewhere in there. Yeah. And there's not, I just did an ultra this past weekend and I was looking at the results and I just scrolled through the first page, but I know there were 33 people that finished in under 24 hours. And I think that was probably those 33 people at least. And there was nobody younger than 32, I think. Literally nobody else in their 20s besides me. So I was like, kind of in the wrong sport maybe, but I like it. So.
No, that's amazing. And I can't help but think like your upbringing, maybe you didn't train, like you didn't do track workouts and shit, but you had this like base of grit, right? Like there's something about shoveling shit in a horse barn that like builds you as a person. I grew up with horses and I remember it just being like hot Midwest summer and just sitting there shoveling like and cleaning stalls. And there's something about that just kind of instills this like hard work attitude and like no nonsense, no whining, nobody wants to hear it, you know, when you're in that environment.
I think you have to learn to appreciate it too, because that was the only way I was going to be able to ride horses was by working. And so as much as like, yeah, it sucked, it was not, I like really early on learned to appreciate the work that got me to where I wanted, like really wanted to ride, but I couldn't ride unless I put in this kind of work. So it's kind of this like, you know, not just working because you have to, but because like, no, I want to do this because of where it'll get me long term kind of. So
yeah, right on. Yeah. So then you've kind of, you know, expanded your breadth since then. You were just talking about your journey into these 100-mile races. And I think 100-mile races and like ultra long distance are kind of interesting because there's a longer, there's a later prime, right? A lot of the best ultra runners are like late 30s, early 40s. Sometimes we're seeing them 50s. And you're like at your peak physical career and you're tackling like big 100-mile races. So it's not typically something you see.
No. I always say, I think I found ultras way too young because most people, I don't know. I think a lot of younger people are physically capable of them, but they take a lot mentally. And that's kind of what people I've talked to, like, I don't think a lot of people like mentally want to go there. And I don't know what makes me want to go there, but I love it. So, yeah, I guess that first year of running, I did a Spartan Ultra Beast and I was like 30 miles, like that's ridiculous. I'd never run more than like 12, but I was like, I could literally walk and make the cutoff time. So I was like, let's go. And I think that kind of set the tone of like, anytime I do ultras, even now, I always, like I have zero pressure, zero expectations for myself, because to me, it's like just being out there and doing it, like that's huge. So yeah, I did that first 50K and I completed it. I almost died, but I did it. And then after I'd done 30 miles, I like saw a 50 miler. I was like, well, if I can do 30 miles, I can do 50K. I could do 50 miles. And then after I did the 50 miles, it took another year, but then I was like, I'm going to try to do 100. Like I had heard of 100 miler probably like 2 years previously. And I was like, that's nuts. But there's this little bit of like, if people are doing it, I wanted to try it. Like I want to do it. Like if it's being done, I want to do it. So yeah, I did my first 100 miler. It was absolutely miserable. But it was also like a terrible setting. Like it was in South Texas in the middle of August and like 70% of the course was sand. Oof. And yeah, so after I finished that one, I was like, literally nothing could be worse than this. And I ended up doing 2 within another 6 months. And I just think I got addicted. Like there's something about challenging yourself that much, like beyond what you're maybe like actually humanly capable of. Like it definitely takes more than that. But then the satisfaction of doing it, like nothing tops that. So I think I'm just kind of chasing that high a little bit.
When you talk about like that place you go mentally, do you have like a strategy that you set up beforehand? Do you use like mantras, or are you just kind of dealing with things as they come? Because I've noticed like you're really big on like the gratitude mindset and just super happy usually during races. And I know 100 miles, it can't be like that for the whole race, but being able to find like those little bits of happiness are super important. So I'm just curious how you get to that positive mindset.
Um, I don't know. I think it's a lot of just kind of taking it as it comes. I definitely take all the time I possibly can to like soak in the views. And that's one of the biggest reasons, like I do all these mountain races, and until kind of now, I did not have the skill set for mountains, but I was like, that's where I want to be. So I definitely take the time to like soak in the views, everything out there. I have found that like everything starts hurting at some point, and there's just kind of like you can do some managing, but then a lot of it is just kind of, I don't know. I feel like I manage the pain pretty well because I guess I don't focus on it. I'm like, okay, this is a problem. Like, let's fix it if we can. And if we can't, like, well, we'll just go and just, kind of push through it. This past one, I guess, was one where I started hurting within like the first 10 miles. And I literally thought to myself, like, this is going to be a long day. Like normally the first 30 miles are piece of cake. Then it kind of is like, okay, now it's getting real. And by the last 80, I'm like, I just want to finish. So
what percentage so for example, like your last one, Old Dominion, do you think that you ran versus walked?
looking at just like my base pace, I would say 2/3 of it was running.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of what I glanced at. I definitely run everything that's like slightly downhill or flat. And then pretty much, I mean, at the beginning, I was definitely running up some of those slighter grades. But as it gets later, in the day in the race, I'll definitely power hike up pretty much everything. But I found still like hiking, I can hike typically like a 15 to 17 minute pace. And if I'm alternating that 15, 17 minute up and then running a solid like 10-ish, 9 to 10-ish down, it kind of averages out to like a 12, which is sort of still a running pace. So
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
super solid for like a 100-mile race. That's still flying. Like
the hard thing then is like the aid stations then stack up. So then you'll have some like, I'll see my mile and it'll be like a 19 or a 20-minute mile. And I'm like, but that's like, stopping for an aid station, filling up water, eating some food. This one we actually had to weigh in twice. Well, I guess weigh in before we started, then 2 more times throughout the race. So, but I guess, I don't overthink it. I know I can complete it. And so I know I will. And then to me, it's like, this is 24 hours, like just surviving outside. And like, I just have to be outside, and, like the shower, the bed, all of that comes eventually. But like, it's not very often that I get to spend a full 24 hours just like outside enjoying it all. So, yeah.
That's a really good mindset. And I think not that many people think about it that way, is not just the movement and the racing part, but also just being outdoors and like out there experiencing wildlife and, seeing sunsets and checking out the mountain views. There might be bears, right? It's like, there's so many different variables in these big races like that you don't necessarily think about unless you're there.
And you see moments that you wouldn't see on a normal day, like ever. I know the first mountain one, I guess, was out in West Texas. And at right about 6 a.m., I hit the top of this peak. You had to hit it 3 different times. But I hit it the 3rd time, and there was literally, the moon was going down on one side and the sun was coming up on another. And I was like, this is cool. Like, this is it. And I'll have moments like that almost every race where I'm just like, I'm glad to be alive and I'm glad to be out here. Like, this is amazing. So, yeah.
So for the Old Dominion one you just did, can you have headphones?
No. No, I don't really listen to music when I run at all. The only thing I'll listen to sometimes is podcasts, but I don't like headphones. I don't like to be like closed out. So I'll kind of just stick it in my hydration pack, and I'll keep it like close enough to where I can hear it. But, so I actually sometimes I'll listen to podcasts or I'll listen to books or whatever if I get really bored, but most of the time I'm with other people. Like I try to talk to people. And so it's neat too, because this is my first time racing ultra out on the East Coast. And I learned all about all kinds of races out on the East Coast, Midwest, that I knew nothing about. There's like a Midwest Grand Slam where you do like, I think they have 5 that you do in a summer. I was like, I'd never heard of that. So
To dial into
cool.
that real quick about the Grand Slam thing, because I actually didn't know about it until you were saying it. It's sort of like a series of races that are all 100 miles. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of it was established, I think, in like I think the first person that did it back in like the 80s, maybe even the 70s, but it's kind of considered the 5 like oldest 100-milers in the country, and kind of like they're kind of the oldest, most prestigious. So obviously Western States is one of the first one. Old Dominion was one of the original ones as well. There's Vermont 100, Leadville, and Wasatch. And I'm not really sure. I learned a lot about the history of Old Dominion this past weekend. So I'm not really sure how that got established, but somebody back in the 70s decided to run them all in the summer and kind of established it as like a thing. So now it's a thing.
Just takes
and it's
one
gone through
crazy person.
Pretty much. But now like you fit, I tell people, I'm like, so I'm doing all these hundreds this summer, and like, it's a thing. But really like you basically just do 4 out of these 500s over the summer. And at the end you get like this cool eagle trophy. That's really all it is like this like cool little eagle trophy. But to me, it's more like the thought of like doing that 100-miler every month in like, on like a kind of an iconic course, which is kind of fascinating to me, I guess.
Have you heard the story of how Western States started?
Yeah. Where was it?
The horse.
I don't know. I've heard different things. Yeah. I heard that like his horse went lame, and so he was like, you know what, I could just run it. I've also heard like, you know, I could beat a horse on that. I don't really know what the actual thing is, and I find that really interesting because on the horse side of things, like I come from that kind of world, and I've done like a 25-miler. I've done a 50-miler. So I like, it's neat. I did the horse ultras like after I was already running. And so I think it's a whole different, most people, the horse ultra, in that horse ultra world, they're like, oh, this is a big deal. And I'm like, sometimes I just run 50 miles, but you know, I'll ride 50 miles today, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of neat.
It's an interesting thing. There was like this period, especially when ultra running was starting to take off, where people would run races, you know, with horses. Because obviously, you know, it goes back to early America, where long distance was always using horses. People didn't necessarily travel that far on foot. And then you have things like the Western States where somebody tries to do it on foot, and everybody else around him, imagine you're standing there, is on a giant horse.
Yeah.
And then they said eventually, you know, next year there was 10 people on foot. And then the following year, half the people were on foot. And then like 10 years later, there was no horses left in the race. It completely turned from a horse race into a foot race.
Yeah. Vermont 100, which I'm doing next month, they actually, up until like literally 2 years ago, I think, they ran the horses. You got to run with the horses, which is not many courses doing that anymore. And then I know there's one, I think in Arizona, where it's literally called like man versus horse. And each year, I think it's a 50K or a 50-miler where they literally try to like race the horse. I think the horse normally wins, but there's been a few years where man beats the horse. So
I'm not sure if it was the same one, but my friend Matt Graham, he's a ultra runner and survivalist, but he did a race against a horse. I think it might have just been like one-on-one.
Oh, really?
And apparently it was a pretty crazy showdown. He's like obviously like world-class runner, and there was something about an aid station, like they stopped him to check him, and like the horse caught up, and I don't know, he'll tell the story better than I do, but I always think that's a cool idea, like having a human race a horse, because it seems like obviously a horse is going to win, but when you think about those long technical trails, they can't respirate like we can, they can't breathe like we can, so we have certain advantages that they don't have.
And I read something that the hotter it gets, the closer, because it's normally the horses kind of have a gap on the humans, but the hotter it gets, the more that the humans close that gap, which just kind of goes to show, like, you know, horses can't just run in anything. People can.
Yeah, we are the only animal that can run really far on a really hot day. It's pretty crazy. We have no other strengths as, you know, animals in the animal kingdom, but our ability to respirate and control our own breathing allows us to run further than anyone else on a hot day. Yeah, pretty fascinating. So, we got that going for us. We don't have strength or claws, but we can run far.
At least we got that.
Speaking of running far, so you kind of take this racing thing to the next level, and walk us through the time leading up to Hyrox. I'm curious, was your training like event specific? Are you still training for like these 100-mile races while you're training for Hyrox? How does that work? Because you're doing so many different things.
I would say my training is, I'd say it's pretty well rounded. I typically, really my biggest things are I run every day. I do a speed workout once a week, and then I work out every day. And they're just kind of like basic leg function, nothing crazy. I'm not ever trying to max out my deadlift, ever trying to max out any kind of weights. I just want to move and move weight and move in like functional movements every day. So that's kind of what it's been for the past couple of years. Leading up to Hyrox, actually, I had moved to Colorado like 4 weeks before, I think. So I was hiking a lot more than I normally do, which is not at all Hyrox specific. But I was doing a lot of hiking, a lot of just like running. Definitely, it took me a little bit to adjust to the altitude. And I actually had, I guess I had other races leading up to it. But I will say for Hyrox, since the first time I did it, and then also the second time, I knew that like I could get better, but I needed to get better at those specific movements. So I guess on it, like the 2 to 3, 4 weeks leading up to it, I did a lot of hiking and running and just like adventuring. And then I tried to do 2 Hyrox workouts a week, just kind of focusing on the wall balls. I feel like is something I can always work on, the sled push and the sled pull, and then the lunges. Those are kind of like the 4 things that I was like Hyrox specific need to work on. I've put in a decent amount of work on the ski erg and the rower. So I feel fairly confident with those. And it was more just the sled push, sled pull, those 4 that I mentioned that, and I did, I'll do them kind of whatever. Sometimes I'll, do extra work on just one. I'll do like kind of a like run and then a station thing. I just kind of mess around with it, do whatever I feel like. But yeah, definitely did some specific work leading into it. That was it. Mostly just enjoying Colorado. I feel like I've just been on a high, like ever since moving here. So maybe that carries over.
It's a good place to be, especially like if you're into adventure and fitness racing. Like you can literally just train in the mountains. Like a lot of my, workouts are just going to the top of X mountain, right? X trail. It doesn't always have to be inside a gym. You can actually train outside and have like real mountains in your backyard.
Yeah, nothing really beats that. So.
Yeah, it's hard to beat it. So the Hyrox day comes. One thing that I thought was wild was that they raced the elites at 6:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Especially for people coming from Europe or coming from the East Coast. Like if you're from the East Coast, for everyone watching, these athletes were racing at 9:30 p.m. their time.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a lot different. I'm sure a lot of your workouts are in the morning. How did you kind of adjust to that?
I don't know if you really can adjust to it. I guess I would say, I kind of have enough I know enough how my body works that I know like as long as I eat solid food, like basically 4 hours before I do something, make sure I'm hydrated, especially like 2 hours before, then when it comes time, like I'm pretty much ready to go. I don't know if I really like adjusted for it or anything, just kind of wanted to make sure I had eaten well and I had drank well and then had given enough time for all of that to settle. That was kind of my approach.
Awesome. Yeah. And then the race ended up being like totally epic. Like, I don't think a lot of people were expecting for it to go like how it did. There's a lot of focus on the guys race, which ended up Hunter just ran away with it. But then the girls race ended up being like super close and like super entertaining. So I guess just walk us through kind of what was your mindset kind of station by station?
Okay. Well, I came into it knowing, obviously these were the top people in the world and I came in like seated 12th and, we can say whatever we want about like how that qualification worked and everything, but I knew like up to that point, my time was the 12th fastest time. So I didn't have an expectation of winning, but I knew I could do better than I had done for that 12th time. So I figured I could do top 5. We started out and I'm always, I don't know, I don't have a lot of strategy. I'm just kind of like go when I feel good, take a little second to breathe if I feel rough, and we'll go. So I started out and felt good. So I ended up actually like taking the lead on that first run, came into ski erg first, think I came out of skier in maybe 5th or 6th, which I was totally like, didn't surprise me a lot. Sled push and sled pull are always the ones that are just, unless I were to put a lot of mass on, they're just always going to be a struggle for me. So I sled push, suffered through it. I didn't feel like it didn't defeat me. I didn't feel like I was losing a ton of ground, but I also wasn't as fast as I might have hoped to be because I felt like I'd put work in on it. Sled push and sled pull, I think when I left the sled pull, I was probably in 12th, maybe 9th or 10th place. I was definitely not a front runner. And I remember as I left the sled pull, I was kind of like, well, like, all right, we're just going to, like, obviously I'm going to finish the race, but like, we'll see how this goes. But also I heard somebody say as I was leaving the sled pull, like, the sleds are over, let's go now. And so I did kind of have that thought, like, that's right. Like the rough thing's over. Like now we can go. Came in, the burpee broad jumps was next. And I came into that and I have not done super well on them, but the format that they were in actually worked out well because I could see exactly where like everybody else in the field was. But anyways, there was a girl kind of 2 down that had come in before me, but I came in and got right into burpee broad jumps. And I realized I was moving faster than her on the burpee broad jumps. So I was like, all right, like pass one person up and running, like they call it kills. And I was like, okay, that was 1 kill. Like, I'm making some progress here. Came out of the burpee broad jumps. I had actually, so kind of to preface all this, before we started, I thought I had like eaten and drank well. But I ended up, my stomach felt like a little tight and I was like, maybe it's just nerves. Like this is kind of a big deal and whatever. But as I was running and probably sled push, sled pull, I feel like I felt it on the burpee broad jumps as well. I was like, I don't feel great. Like I feel like I might puke. And I've never puked while working out, anything like that. So, and I always kind of think like these people are going like overboard. Like there's no reason to need to puke. Anyways, I was kind of like, I don't know. Like, I don't really want to think about it. Anyways, came out of burpee broad jumps, went into the run. I came into the row I came into the row in 4th. So I think it was after the burpee broad jumps when I was running around, you could see up on the screen, like how everybody was doing. And I realized I was like, I think I'm actually in 5th. And I passed somebody on that run and came into the row in 4th. And I could hear them calling the times of the people in, the 2 front leaders. And I was only like 120 meters behind them. And I was like, this is actually going good. Like, and as I left the row, I think it was on that first lap running around, I was like, okay, I'm about to lose my stomach. So actually, as I was running, I kind of mid-run, like, lost some of the contents of my stomach. And after that, I was like, okay, like, now I'm feeling great. Soon after that, I actually passed a girl as well. So I was in 3rd place, and I was like, this is good. Like, I got that over with, feeling better. And then the farmer's carry was next. And I came into the farmer's carry. And farmer's carry is something like, I've worked really hard on my grip for OCR. Let me turn a light on in here real quick. Anyways, I've worked really hard on the grip for OCR. So I was like, you know what? Like, I've got grip growing for me. I should be good on this. And I ended up doing the farmer's carry unbroken. And the top 2 girls took several breaks. And I still, like, they were a couple laps in front of me. Couldn't quite tell where they were. But when I left that, I realized, running out of that station, I saw the 2 of them right in front of me. And I was like, wait a second, like I'm in 3rd place and not like squarely in 3rd place. Like I'm right behind these girls. As we left, one girl split off to get water. And I was like, I'm in 2nd place now. And as we started that run, I passed her, I think on that first run where I was like, I'm feeling good. I'm just going to go. Like, maybe I'm like, but I literally kind of thought to myself, am I like going too fast? Am I going too hard? I was like, no, I feel good. So I ended up passing her. I came into the lunges in 1st, and I don't think anybody expected that. When I came in, it was like, I think a lot of people were kind of, and I even like some of the live commentary, they're like, did she miss something? Did she miss a run? Did something? And I knew I was right. But one girl ended up passing me on the lunges, but not by much. And we went out again. I was feeling good on the run. So I passed her up on the run. And even then I was like, this is going really well for me. But I knew like, I'm okay at wall balls, but I'm probably like not the strongest there. And I've heard that the European girls are really strong on them. So anyways, came into the wall balls and probably had like 10 in before the next girl came in. And I was like, okay, like 10 is a good number. I'm not like 2. Took the breaks that I had planned on taking, took a quick break, breathed, got right back to it. But it wasn't until, but she didn't take breaks, and then she did. I was trying to kind of keep tabs on where she is, but mostly focus on me. Anyways, it wasn't until
break points?
I broke at 25, and then I think I broke again at 40, and then I broke at 60, 64, 65-ish, somewhere in there. And then I went the last 35 unbroken. So right at like 30. Yeah. So, and that's when I picked it up and went into, started like the 65, 66, somewhere in there. I thought about it, and I was like, my thought was literally like, I know I can do 25, no problem. So let me do the 25. And then I was like, 35 is only 10 more. Like, I can gut out another 10 for, or another 10. So that's where I kind of realized to myself, I was like, all right, I'm going to go unbroken. And I knew she was still about 8 to 10 behind me. And I realized, I was like, I think I'm going to win this thing. Yeah. So it was cool. Cause I don't know. I feel like, I don't know what most people do when they race, but I am very like, just kind of processing and seeing what's all going on. And I'm always like, see how I'm feeling. And it was really cool to just kind of like, I feel good. Let's go. And it's just kind of all worked out for me.
Did you get emotional
cool.
like when you came across the line? Was it like overwhelming?
I think it was mostly just shocked. Like, it's like, I just won. Like, I don't know. I didn't have time, I think, to gear up for that. Like, when I finish ultras, and I will definitely start thinking about like, oh my gosh, it's almost done. Like, and I'll get a little, like, I'll definitely get emotional because I'm gearing up for it. This one, like, nah, I feel like I was just completely shocked. Like, that just happened, or did it? Like, I guess it did. Yeah.
It's incredible. And it didn't stop there. You then hopped in a car after you won and drove to what some would consider, one of the hardest Spartan races in the country at Big Bear, and you raced 12 hours later.
My strategy, or what I told myself there was like, 12 hours is not enough time to get sore. So I'll be good. Like, none of that soreness, none of the tiredness sets in. Yeah, I've been planning it for a couple of months, I guess. I also thought that the elites were going to run earlier in the day, so I did not expect that 6:30. But it's one of those, like, these are two important races. They're important in I want to do well in Hyrox. I'm also trying to do well in the Spartan series. So it's just kind of we'll try to work it out. And I feel like I went into the weekend not with very high expectations. Like, it kind of is what it is. And who knows if I'll feel good, whatever. But I also very much knew, like, I'm feeling fit. I'm feeling good. I've been training at altitude, and I figured the top 5 was in the cards, hopefully, for me. Like, that was kind of my goal. And luckily it worked out.
Yeah, it definitely worked out. Obviously, an amazing accomplishment. And one thing that comes to my mind, and I'm sure a lot of people have this mindset if they're not a professional athlete, but how do you make money and have the time to pursue all these things? Because you're not just pursuing one sport that's time demanding. You're pursuing like 4 different avenues of time demanding, and also obviously a lot of travel and race fees and things like that. How do you make all that work with your lifestyle?
I'm not pursuing any one sport. I feel like I'm just pursuing my most fit, healthiest self. So that's when it comes to the training and all that, I don't spend a whole lot of time I have to get these training blocks in for this specific race. I know if I want to run fast, I need to run fast every week. I know if I want to run long, I need to run long every week. I know if I want to be strong, just kind of the basics. I want to be a functionally fit person. As far as the money side of things, I work hard, I'm smart with my money, and this is the one thing that I spend my money on. So, and I'm okay with that. I don't really drink at all. I don't go out to eat much. I don't spend money on things that I don't need, because this is the thing that I care about. This is what I want to do. So yeah, it's kind of it definitely is a time and some kind of a commitment level, but for me, I'm at the point still, at least, where I'm this is what I like. This is what I love. This is what I want to do. If I could race every weekend, I'd be happy. Obviously I definitely watch flights. I track flights. I travel very inexpensively. I bring food with me. I definitely like just spend the bare minimum. But to me, like I'm doing this all for the experience and for the race. And like, that's what I like. I don't need all the, fancy hotels. Like, I mean, I'll sleep in an airport, I'll sleep on a couch, like, but I just want to race. So I'll kind of do what it takes, I guess. Yeah,
That's amazing. So
that's kind
are
of my
you
approach.
full time now racing? Are you doing anything else for work?
No, I work full time.
Okay.
I just started 2 weeks ago. I've done a lot of nannying in the past. So I just started with a new family 2 weeks ago, watching two kids all day. So yeah, kind of like play mom all day. And then, I get to get running in the morning. I take them on walks, take them to the park, whatever. I love it. So, and I don't know. I don't think I could, I've been working since I was 17, 18. I don't think I could do the whole, like, just be a pro athlete. Like I need to have some kind of organization and commitment and making some kind of decent money. So I don't know.
I think it's maybe the perfect job for you. You just be like, come on, little Tommy, get on my back. I'll run down the hill with you on my back, and we can go do monkey bars together.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's always been the perfect job for me. So I've worked at a gym for several years, and I was like, that's good, but like I'm ready to get back to like I enjoy this a lot. So.
And you were were you at Grit? Is that where you were in Texas? Because I met a guy named Jonathan. We raced together. Actually, I think Ultra Worlds, and then also the National Series race in Jacksonville. So I met him, and I saw Grit Fitness, and then I saw something about yours on Grit Fitness, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Is this like a gym? Is it a race? Is it a team? I was confused.
So Grit Fitness is a gym, and that's the gym in Houston that I found like right as I was kind of getting into this. And they actually started a pro team that year. So they kind of put together a team. Initially it had like a whole bunch of benefits, and I was like, yeah, like I'll get in on that. And it's kind of evolved into like now, it's just kind of a team of like good people that want to do these races. It's kind of a community. And for me, Grit Fitness has been like that community and that like base for me to be able to train well for this and be around other people that are interested in this. So, and then they also, in the past couple of years, have started putting on events. So they put on one event in the summer, which is like one of my favorite events because it caters to the full athlete. So they do the Grit Games in the summer, and then they've started doing more like just, obstacle course races, kind of like, it's kind of a mix between a obstacle course race and like a DECA where they do like functional fitness plus obstacles with running in it. So great group of people. And it's definitely like Texas based, but there's people all over that kind of, it's kind of expanded some, I guess, through the team.
So are you kind of sticking with that, or are you going to find another kind of gym in Colorado that you're going to work with, or what do you think?
I don't know. I haven't, I want to find some kind of a gym, but I'm still not a gym person. So I've been staying with my friend in Colorado Springs, and she has like a garage gym, and that's perfect. Every time I go down there, I'm like, this is perfect. I just need a little space where I can, get a little workout in and some peace and quiet. And, so I haven't really found a gym. I don't really need a gym, but I want to find something, I guess. We'll see.
And I'll be racing this weekend down in Colorado Springs, that neck of the woods, but you said you're not going to be there. You've got another race, right? Is that right?
The next race of the National Series is down in Mexico this weekend. So
right, yes.
I'm sad to miss my first like new hometown race, but yeah, Mexico is more priority, I guess.
Yeah, I think VJ said the same thing yesterday to me, that he isn't going to be able to make it because obviously, I mean, if you're competing in the National Series, like it doesn't matter if it's next door, you got to go to the race that they say to go to.
Yeah. And if we do well, there's a chance of bigger money and that kind of thing. So
absolutely. Yeah. You got to get the bread. What about nutrition? Are you kind of just, if I had to guess before you even answer this, it's probably you keep it very simple and you don't do any one thing. You're just kind of making yourself the best overall athlete, but I'm just guessing based on themes.
I pretty much just eat whatever. I think there's a lot of value to like whole food and to real food. So I would say I kind of do like an 80%. My thing is, I have a hard, like, I love food. I'll eat all the time, but I don't like to cook and I don't like to prepare food. And taking the time to eat to me is like taking time from the day. Like I would rather not worry about that and just eat whatever. So I kind of eat whatever I can find, something quick, something easy, not at all strict. But I try to, since I don't want to spend a ton of time on the food thing, I try to make what I eat count. So I try to eat like good food. And I kind of loosely say, like, I kind of do an 80-20, 80% of the food, I would like it to be like good, healthy food. 20%, I don't care. Those numbers are not like concrete or anything. I kind of just eat whatever, but I try to eat a good amount of food and drink a lot of water, and that's kind of it.
What about your like flexibility and mobility training? Are you focusing on like, I got to do this stretch after every race, or is there anything that you really prescribe to in terms of like mobility or recovery or anything like that?
Well, at Grit Fitness, like a lot of the focus there was a lot of like it's functional fitness, but a huge focus on longevity, because what's the point of doing this if you can't wake up and do it the next day? So I'd say I kind of have that like in the back of my head of like, I want to be able to do this for a long time. I definitely have, I would say like before and after any workout and a lot of runs, I definitely kind of have a set of just kind of stretches that I've done so many times. I just kind of feel like good to just kind of stretch out before or after. I definitely like, if I ever got to the point where I was not able, I don't know, I guess I do it often enough to where I would say a lot more flexible, better mobility than a lot of people are, because I think that's really important. So, yeah, is there something specific? No, not really, except like IT bands. IT bands, I feel like, is the biggest thing that's always an issue. So I'm always stretching those before, after. I'll do some scraping and whatever I need to do on them. Other than that, just kind of basic, like, yeah, I wouldn't say there's really a set routine, but I do have kind of a full body mobilization thing that I'll kind of run through a lot.
I need to get more notes on that, because my mobility and flexibility like routine is just trash. It's basically non-existent at this point, but
Yeah.
I know it is important. I just I don't know. I just end up not doing it or skipping it, which is bad.
Yeah, it's easy too, until you realize like, wait, I am stiff as a board. That's not so fun.
Yeah. That ends up being the case a lot of the time, and I kind of do it to myself, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think I think part of that is like being young, right? I think as like I get older, maybe I'll get wiser and start doing more of the training or the mobility.
You're gonna have to do more of it, is what it is.
So I guess on that note, like as you think about the future, do you see like being a professional athlete as kind of like the next thing on the horizon for a long time, or in the future are you going to move into training? Do you ever think about any other business ventures related to this kind of stuff?
I am not a coach. I feel like I'm still so new to everything. I do not have the kind of education to be able to coach. I would say have a decent bit of education in like the whole group fitness, kettlebell workout scene. So I've done some coaching in that. When it comes to like, oh yeah, like I'm not a coach. I think they even say like the best runners are not the best coaches. And I definitely fall into that. Like I'm just good at running, not a good coach. I would say I'm kind of it's kind of a hobby to me right now. And I don't see that change. I mean, I think it'll always be a hobby. I have a lot of like goals. I have places I want to go with it, but nothing to and I guess the things that I enjoy don't really have the option to like, become a like full-time sponsored athlete. I mean, you can, but it's a little iffy, and I do it because I enjoy it. I do it because I love it, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So no, not really. I don't see myself going like a whole lot more levels. I'm just a competitor, and that's kind of it.
But you do kind of work with some sponsors now, right? In terms of, the different running equipment or gear that you're using, you kind of work with some of those sponsors.
Yeah. If there are companies that I like use and can actually get behind, I will do that. But I'm not just trying to find something to like make money off of, and I'm not trying to survive doing this. So like shoes, I have 2 shoe brands that I use and I love, and I get to work with them both now. So that's really cool. I have, I mean, like, I guess I have a hydration now that I really like, that I'm able to work with. I think I found a CBD that I really like, and I'm kind of starting to work with them. So I definitely have like some things that I'm working with, but it's nothing like, you know, I'm also like not a social media person, and I'm terrible at all of the social media influencer stuff. So a lot of it, if they're like, oh, we need you to like, you know, put out this much content, I'm like, nah, like me just being an athlete and wearing your stuff needs to be enough. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't know. I base it more off like performance than like social media presence.
Yeah.
That kind of, so.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people probably respect that attitude. Like, you're an athlete first, all that other stuff is kind of second nature.
Yeah, that's very secondary. Like, yeah, if it comes, it comes. If not, no big deal.
So in terms of the race you were speaking about, the Mexico Elite Series race, do you have any expectations for this weekend, or just kind of going into it?
Nope, not really any expectations. I think a lot of the top female players are still going to be there. So I would say like a top 10. I think I could do a top 5. I do like that it is different. I think that's a strength that I maybe have, is that I don't expect things to all be the same. I'm not training for anything specific. So when things are kind of different, I like to think I kind of adapt well and I'm able to, you know, kind of handle those. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be cool. I haven't been to Mexico since I was like 17. So it'll be my first time back there in a long time. But yeah, I'm excited.
When you say it's different, do you just mean like the location, or are you expecting the actual race, like in terms of obstacles and course?
Well, yeah, it's managed by as much as it's like under Spartan globally, it's managed by a whole different group of people than all of the US ones. So I expect some things to definitely be different. I guess Hammond, one of the course designers here in the US, he's coming down. So I feel like he's going to end up standardizing it some to make it more normal. But no matter what he does, like, I think there's still obstacles that we just don't see in US races anymore. So I'm excited about that. Like,
yeah,
give me something unknown. Like, give me something new.
Well, hopefully they do the pre-race speech in Spanish, because it's pretty underwhelming in English. So hopefully they do it in Spanish. It's a lot more hype. I can imagine it'd be cooler.
I hope they give us like course info in English, though. I'd like some basic, like a course briefing. But yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I want it to all be Spanish. I think that'd be really cool.
That'd be hilarious if they did it in Spanish and you guys are walking around like, what the
And then the few that know Spanish end up doing well because they know what to expect.
Right, yeah, that'd be a huge advantage. You got to find somebody that's like a native speaker down there and be homies with them. And super fun, and I feel like I've learned a lot from this podcast. I kind of got to understand your mindset a little bit better. And yeah, let's definitely hit a trail run here. I'll try to do my best to keep up. I'll probably be losing a lung, but yeah, let's link up and hit some 14ers.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining. This is Who the Wild Things Are. We'll see you guys next time.